Over the last few days, I have noticed that many people are interested in how much progress has been made in the low-light performance of the X4 compared to the X3. Of course, many would like to see better low-light performance. After all, you often want to use your 360 camera in the evening or indoors. To clarify whether the progress is sufficient, I'll show you a few longer low-light comparison shots in this video. In fact, the image quality of the X4 has also improved in low light compared to the X3. However, you should know a few things. For optimum low-light performance, you should use a resolution of 5.7K on the X4. Whether in 8K or in 5.7K plus, the image quality in low-light conditions will be worse than with 5.7K. In addition, a low frame rate of a maximum of 30 frames per second is of course recommended. A frame rate of 24 frames per second would even be ideal. All these shots were taken in the standard color profile. This applies to the X4 as well as the X3. And here you should consider the following. The colors could be significantly improved on the X4. This applies in particular to the standard color profile and somewhat less to the color profile Vivid. And this is of course also noticeable in these comparison shots in low light. The X4's images not only look better because the general low light performance has been improved, but also because the colors in the X4's standard color profile clearly look better. But it's not just that. It's noticeable that the Insta360 X3 obviously uses a slower shutter speed in low light. This results in more motion blur and poorer stabilization. You can see this particularly well in this shot here. If you look at the sky in this shot, you'll notice that the X4 has a slightly better dynamic range than the X3. The sky appears somewhat overexposed in the X3 shot, while the highlights are relatively well protected on the X4. And this is despite the fact that the X4 shot looks brighter overall. Incidentally, this applies to most of these comparison shots. However, it has to be said that the X4 is not a low-light specialist either. Especially when there is very little ambient light, you would simply need a camera with a significantly larger sensor. Of course, this applies not only to the X4, but to all types of action cameras. And indeed, if, as in this case, there is a certain amount of artificial light, you can take perfectly acceptable vlogging shots with the X4, even in very low light conditions and when it is very dark. I think this shot here looks quite good given the poor lighting conditions. Compared to the X3, the shots from the X4 also have more detail in low light conditions. They look sharper and simply more detailed. However, I would say that both shots have a similar amount of image noise. So what do you think? Is that enough for you as an improvement in low light? You can find links to the X3 and X4 in the video description. There you will also find a link to my detailed comparison between the X4 and the X3. Take a look at the rest of the footage and then write me your opinion on the low light performance of the X4 in the comments. I'd be interested to hear what you think. And see you next time.